All right, we have ticked over into 9 o'clock. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Feature Friday. We're excited to see everybody here on a sunny end of the week morning, and we appreciate you joining us. We have a special guest today, one of our amazing team members, Mike Fisher. So Mike has been with the team for quite a while. We go way back here, and what we most value with his knowledge is everything to do with commercial, land development, rural, all of those strange properties where it's not the same as all of our residential knowledge. And I know for me, sometimes the real estate courses seem so long ago, and it's easy to forget what you don't know. So for today, what we're going to be focusing on is land development, and specifically for highest and best use. When a client's coming to you, vacant lots aren't just vacant lots. There's so much that goes into the pricing and everything with it, and you want to make sure that we're the ones telling the client the value and not a buyer agent swooping in and sneaking the property out from underneath us. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike. Mike, take it away. Once Mike has finished his presentation, if you have any questions, raise your hand and we will make sure that we get to everybody.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, and Sarah, very much. It's lovely to see everyone's beautiful faces on here this morning. Thank you for having me. I'm just gonna share my screen first, and then we'll get into it. All right, cool. Okay, cool. Here we go. We're going to talk about not only highest and best use for necessarily commercial or vacant land. That's normally where we would branch into talking about this subject. However, with more municipalities allowing to have other units onto your residential sites or path of development happening in smaller secondary markets like where we work, Georgina, Brock, etc. I think it's important to talk about how you can figure out the highest and best use for some residential properties. It's not all of them. However, I think we need to touch base on all of them pretty much. So, highest and best use. It's a framework for maximizing asset values in residential, commercial, and rural markets because we're going to get into some really unique rural scenarios happening as of lately. Okay, so you got to define the concept. What is highest and best use first and foremost, right? It's the reasonably probable, legal, physically possible, and financially feasible use of vacant land or existing properties. That does include residential as well. It must yield the highest value in an active market. Okay, so we're not looking to just price it and get a sale. If there's something unique about this property, we can go above and beyond for our clients. It's very important. The importance of it is you don't want to underutilize a site or have any direct losses because of a purchase or pre-development. It clarifies whether to retain existing structures, redevelop, or convert a property into a different asset class. So if you have a residential property and you have an investor looking and they're like, yes, the rents are, sorry, I'm still battling a cold. If the property is not going to be get enough rent, so are you able to put another unit onto it? Are you able to put it into a different asset class of maybe making it into a duplex or a triplex or something like that? Okay. So that's the definition of finding the highest best use. So we need to find out what is physically possible on a property. So we do all our research and due diligence periods with the townships, planning acts, or whatever we need to do along there. So we figure out first and foremost parcel dimensions. We figure out the land shape, is there acreage, what's the frontage, which is also super important in our area, a building footprint, and boundaries. Now, frontage in our area is very important because we still deal with a lot of septics, and that is actually something that you need a certain amount of frontage for without needing minor variances involved. Okay, so we can touch base on that as well. Topographical conditions, and it analyzes slope, soil load bearing capacity, flood zone risk, which is super important in this area, and overall drainage. Does the property drain or is it sitting in a flood zone? And utilize infrastructure. Does it have direct access to municipal water, waste systems, high power electric? Looking at you, Steph. And what about transit? Is it in the area as well? This is all going to be a package of Are you able to do anything else other than what is currently possible on this property? Oh, we got to go back here. A double clicker. We don't want a double clicker. Now, are you legally going to be allowed to do it? We've all seen the cottages converted to fake Airbnbs or the basement apartments that are not legal. We've all seen this more along the lines of like Keswick. We've all seen all of this stuff. So, zoning and land use, you got to review the municipal zoning bylaws. Like, I'm all about this. You got to figure out what the density is. What are the setbacks? What is the maximum height? That's a big one. We don't think about that. What is the floor area ratios and what is the maximum lot coverage? That's mostly inside of like commercial because you really want to be able to build as big as you can on the smallest, like not the smallest parcel, but you want to build as big as you possibly can on that land. Now, inside of maximal lot coverage as well, while we're talking about it, is there is a difference between residential maximum lot coverage and commercial maximum lot coverage as well if you're going to do like a medium or high density zoning. We can get into that as well. Now, covenants. Covenants are kind of a gray area we don't really think about too often, but if you're getting into like development or maybe putting more structures on a property, you really got to consider it. It could be private restrictions. Don't see a ton of those anymore. That's usually like, right of ways or easements for like a neighbor. We see it up in Jackson's Point and stuff like that a little bit. Good old cottage country type stuff, but something to consider. Right-of-ways and conservation easements is very, very important. And there's also utility easements, which almost every property kind of has one of those, whether it be hydro or like cable and stuff like that. So you got to know where all of them are and who has an easement or a covenant on the property. Hey, compliance. Identify wetlands and setbacks. We should all know this. This is Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority written all over it. This is a very big factor in our area. I know there's Oak Ridges Moraine, which we got to deal with sometimes as well. So you really got to know. A lot of people think, and anyone that deals with vacant land or sold a lot up in the area, I can buy that 20 acres out on Weir Side Road and I can build whatever I want on it. It's not going to happen. It's probably restricted. I'm looking at Jake smirk. I think you got one on Smith that's like that. So, anyways, on top of that, oh, you raised
Oh,
your hand there.
and I was just going to say quickly, I just didn't want to interrupt you speaking. And guys, remember a lot of this wetlands, conservation, all of this, you can look at it online first. It's not going to tell you everything, but there's a lot of stuff you can find with just some simple searches as an easy basis of is it protected, is it not protected. So never ever skip this step.
Yes, most definitely. And while we're on that note, we'll touch base with the interactive maps on Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, Oak Ridges Moraine. They're so good. Now, do they tell you exactly everything? No. Do not use that as a general guide. They just tell you that the areas that they do have regulations on and areas that they do that you might need permission from them to build or develop. The best course of action is actually to reach out to Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority or whatever environmental conservation that you're dealing with at that time and ask for the actual regulation maps from them on file. You'll get a floodplain, you'll get a wetland mapping, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a general guideline. Do not base it. I mean, if someone's looking, says it's restricted, you can look and say a bit of it, yes, no. However, if you're going to go to any development phase, you need to actually reach out directly to them. And if you are looking for those resources, after my last presentation, probably about a year ago, if you go into the resources board and go all the way to the end, there's pretty much every jurisdiction contact you can reach out to, whether it be Brock, Georgina, Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, all direct contacts to the people that we deal with on a regular basis. So don't skip that because you will be in some hot water. And on top of that, if you are dealing in regulated areas, you should become pretty familiar with what studies may need to be completed if they allow you to develop inside of these wetland constraints. And that could be an impact study, and that could be as simple as finding if you're going to be hurting any salamanders or toads while you're in the property. It could be as big as dealing with birds, as well as it can also like a soil study to see is the land actually sturdy and stable enough to put structures on top of it without basically collapsing. That wouldn't be good. So definitely get in mind, and this stuff can become extremely expensive. You do not want to be on the other end of that if those come up. So make sure that you are reaching out to the proper authorities. I got all excited there. Now I can't find my mouse. Now is it can you actually finance it? Does it make sense? You don't want to see a client buy a piece of land and then go, it was a great buy at $150,000, and now they're half a million before they even put a house in. Again, that's why we reach out to these conservation authorities. The buyers need to do their own due diligence. I get all that. However, we're there to guide them and to give them the best advice as possible. Now, this economical viability, this is more along the lines of like inside a commercial. Does it make sense for a commercial investor? But we'll touch base on it. You want to verify that the proposed use produces a positive net operating income, which is an NOI. It's how much money it's basically making. That offsets acquisition, a purchase price, and development costs. Understand a cap rate that is comfortable for your clientele, and that could be anywhere from a 5 to 10% cap rate. Now, if you ever have a property and you know the income and you know what the purchase price is and you want to figure out a cap rate, you can, like, it's pretty easy to Google. However, if you ever have any questions, please reach out. I can calculate it for you very, very quickly. Most cap rates, if you were looking, and they vary by area in certain markets. So keep that in mind. If someone calls you and they ask for, I want a property with a 10% cap rate, you might be looking at a secondary market like Georgina or even more north than us. You could be going for like a Sudbury, Aurelia. It really does vary. And you need a cap, and it depends on property types as well. Gas stations, they usually run about like 6.5 cap rate. Some mixed use or retail, they could be 7. And then when you get into like multifamily or large apartment buildings, especially in like core downtown Toronto, you can see anything from 4 to 5, which is like it's low, so it's not like a big return, but there's a lot of long-term value there for people. So if someone reaches out to you and talks about cap rates, you can reach out to me and we can figure that out for sure. And then does it make sense in the market? Address your local consumer brand. Current vacancy rate, especially inside a commercial, is if your client is looking to buy a plaza and every unit's been vacant on and off for years, it's is it a good buy? Maybe not. Maybe there's no demand for that product in the area or a product at all. What is the resale possibility? Could someone pick up a plaza for a decent price or a good cap rate, put decent tenants into it, and then resell it, because now it's income producing. So there is upside to it. It all depends. You really got to do your research. Is there value add options? So is there a possibility to buy a piece of land that has a plaza on it and then maybe put a gas station on it? Maybe. Or what if there's a gas station? Is there room to put a car wash? That is a really big value add for a property. So there's lots of factors inside of it. You need to make sure that you can find traffic count and road exposure. Are you on a main road? Fantastic. You probably have a really good traffic count. Are you on like an artery road or a secondary line? You might not have the high traffic count if you are not on a main road. You can look up these numbers and go through any MTO. Well, you don't want to do what I do and go through all the sheets, but you can find out all these numbers from like the MTO. Use Gemini or ChatGPT. They can get close, but you'll want to go back and verify that road in that section of the road. Again, I'll loop back to some of the stuff that we're talking about. You can use Gemini and Chat or whatever program you're using for this information. You need to go double check it though, because there's a couple of scenarios we came across even recently that you go fact checked it and they are not correct, actually not even close. So be very cautious when you're doing that. And let's commercial assets. We'll probably skip over this. This is more talking about like bigger commercial units and stuff like that in the city. We don't really touch base on that. We are expanding some of the type of properties that we are picking up inside of the team as we get different clientele and closer down to Toronto, which I don't really do a ton of right now. Now, this is a unique one, and I wanted to touch base on, and I have an example, but rural land use. All right, so we all know it. Is it we talk about wetland? What can you do with it? Is it farmland? Is it workable? What is it? What can you do with it? That's everyone thinks you buy a rural property, you can do whatever you want with it. But you need to evaluate traditional farm incomes against alternative recreation. Analyze uses such as land rental, which we see a lot of, like they rent 50 acres for me for corn or hay or soybean. We see lots of that. That's great. What about solar development contracts? Conservation easements for, tax credits, which is great, something you need to look into. Parcel zoning into certain manufacturing or tourism. This is super unique because we see a bunch of people want to buy properties in Georgina, especially rural properties. They think that they can maybe have like a manufacturer, a trucking yard on them. Can't do that. However, you might be able to go through a rezoning or a zoning bylaw amendment. It might be a possibility to do that. Keep in mind, if it's not a permitted use on a rural property and you want to go down that road, advise your clients ahead of time that a zoning bylaw amendment or a minor variance to get, a little bit, maybe a site-specific zoning on it is extremely expensive and time consuming. So it's just something to make note of. However, on rural properties as of late, I'm going to give you an example to maybe break this down a little bit easier. I got recently reached out to by a solar company to put solar on one of my clients' farmlands. He's not interested because they lease them for this company in particular. They lease them for 49 years. And if they do lease it for the 49 years, after they do their due diligence period, which can take up to 2 years, which they do pay you for, by the way, they pay you up to $1,900 per acre per year to put solar on it. Now, I had a client reach out. He's a long-term client of myself, and I sold him a property not long ago, and he wants more land. I found him 250 acres, uh, not far from the grid that this solar company wants to be tied into, which is super important. This is heavy due diligence here, guys. And so I reached out to the solar company and I said, would you be interested in taking 100 acres of this, which is almost cleared? It's not farmland or anything like that. It's mostly bush, but it's pretty much cleared. And they said, let me look into it. And you were close enough to the grid. So my clients, before they even purchase it, we might have a contract for solar for them for 100 acres of this 250-acre farm. And it will produce, well, I mean, $190,000 a year for them in solar contracts. It's going to set up their kids basically for life. And it is literally land you cannot use. So there's different alternatives for people using rural properties or anything like that. It's not just straight up, I'm going to farm it. I don't want to farm it, whatever. There's different opportunities. So that one's unique. I'd really be paying attention to rural properties in the next little while, especially up here. There's a lot of interest coming. Oh, I'm going to say that one to the end. That's my favorite. Okay, residential assets. Okay, now this is where it kind of comes in, and what I'm talking about, a lot of we don't. I'm sure some of you will never touch on, and that's fine and dandy. All of us deal in residential at some shape or form. We need to really figure out. We're going to study multifamily because there is a housing shortage. We've all hear about it. We all talk about it, and there is an affordability challenge right now that we all hear all over the news and clients we talk to. And the biggest one is, can we add secondary accessory structures to a property? In Georgina, they are called ARUs. And so that's additional residential units on a property. So does that make it more affordable for somebody that is like, let's say they have young children, or not young children, but their kid can't get into the housing market because they're priced out? Or does it make sense for maybe an investor that maybe could put a couple more units on there to get more rental? These are very important things we need to be listening to. I think Georgina, mark me if I'm wrong, I haven't fact checked myself. 3 units now? Anyone know that? I think it's either 3 or 4 units on a residential property in Georgina now. So something to pay attention to. And the other part of it is if you have a client and they want to sell their house and they're on like a main area or a main road and there's development happening around them, we need to go back and we need to look at, are they in a secondary plan to be turned into commercial or medium high density of a property? Right? We've talked about it in the past of a property that I had that was in the path of commercial zoning, and we actually sold it for an insane amount of money because you could put 18 stacked townhouses on it. The previous agent was just trying to sell it as a single family residence. So if you have clients in the main area, check a secondary plan. Every township has one. You go through and it will tell you what's going to be happening. You need to reach out to the town and find out when that secondary plan is coming. It could be 5, 10, 15 years. However, people looking at secondary markets are looking to park money in areas where they can capitalize now. So something very important. I mean, if you're looking in standard subdivision, let's say in the Ice Palace subdivision, more than likely it's probably just a single family residence. If you're looking at, say you have something along the Queensway, you might want to look into what the future use is going to be. It is extreme value. And last but definitely not least, I talked about this before and I'm going to say it again. Friendly reminder, everyone say it with me. We do not confirm zoning with Geo Warehouse. Now, for the people in the back, we do not confirm zoning with Geo Warehouse ever. Please don't do it. Sometimes it's right, but don't do it. Check with municipality, zoning bylaw maps, the interactive maps, wherever you're working. confirm what the zoning is, please, because you will be in extremely hot water if that is not what the water, if that, sorry, if that's not what the zoning currently is. Thank you. I hope your eyes are not dry. Okay,
I don't
any
know.
questions?
That was great. And I'm also just going to say there, as I mentioned with conservation earlier, most of the zoning bylaws, you can find everything online. Every township is, some are still like 1980s. You're like zooming in on an old school map. Some are interactive, but 99% of the time you can find this information online. You can always reach out to the township, but when you're doing your property research, you can do it at home with your laptop on the couch.
Most definitely. Every township's different and it gets a little challenging looking at the small little maps sometimes, like Sarah just said. However, you can confirm zoning on a property and secondary plans and permitted uses, especially in Georgina or Brock, literally in less than a minute. I mean, okay, even 5 minutes, it'll save yourself and your clients a lot of heartache just by doing it. And not a lot of people do. So we need to do it and stand above the rest.
100%. And it's all just due diligence, right? It's what I'm hearing from this, Mike, is it's just a little more. We're used to just checking comps and recent sales, expires, all of that. This is just the extra level for these types of properties, but it all falls under our due diligence, and most of it is stuff that we can still find at home, even to get started.
Yes, and an example of that is Steph and I. We went into a commercial listing in Jackson's Point recently. We stood our ground, so we ultimately did not get it, which is great. But the agent who I called because he had to sign up for 7 days, and I was curious when it was going on the market, just being a little bugger on that one. He told me that you could put up to 6 residential units and 2 commercial units on this property, which that is not allowed in Georgina without a zoning bylaw amendment because that's what Geo Warehouse told him. So don't be those people. Do we have to repeat it one more time, or are we good?
I I feel like we're good, right? Mike, the specter of Mike will come find you if you just use Geo Warehouse as your
I'm not.
only
I'm
source of
not playing. I
information.
will.
Right? And again, it's the same as when we're looking up listings or doing things for our client. Am I trusting that something in Simcoe Landing is actually direct waterfront, or am I doing my due diligence, right? It's always going above and beyond, and the buck stops with us.
100%. And talking about waterfronts, we are fairly well versed with them up here. But again, make sure you know what you're doing with those. I think the team's pretty good with that. But that's just like you got to
Mm-hmm.
check this stuff.
Always, always. All right. Does anyone have any questions? Throw your hands up. I can unmute you. Throw it in the chat. We have Mike here as our hostage, and we can pick his brain for a few minutes.
And if not, you can
All
always
right.
call me too.
And I love that. Okay, I am just going to. You can unmute now.
Okay. What? Oh my God.
Yeah, no, we can hear you. What's your question, Anna?
No, I lost you. Um, Michael, how do like you speak about the potential, let's say, residential that may be developed or as a commercial, and like maybe even in the future. So how do you find out or figure out that it could be potential for the development in the future? Like,
Fantastic question, Anna. Fantastic. So what you'll want to do on any property is same thing when you go to verify zoning inside of inside like the zoning area or planning act or anything on any municipality, they're going to have a secondary plan for what is actually coming in the future for that municipality or town. So inside that secondary plan, they'll have mapping. And inside that mapping, it'll show where the path of development basically is going. It'll say if you have a property along the Queensway, it might say right now, if you look at the zoning bylaw 500, that is residential, but in the future, it could be sitting in a, Queensway development path or something like that. But it will say in the future of when the secondary plan is approved, this property will be zoned X. And then from there, you can find what the permitted uses for that will be. It's literally just the next step of finding the current zoning and permitted uses, but every township has it.
Oh, sorry, Anna, you muted yourself again. There we go.
and that means that you will know approximately when it is going to happen, like in 10 years and 15 years and 20 years. Is that correct?
You could, yeah. Each municipality will want to verify, but yes, basically the next secondary plans will not happen here in Georgina, especially until we get water and sewer capacities. And we've talked about water and sewer capacities before because we're at our max, not quite, but we're at our max. That won't happen until at least 2031. Talking to a developer the other day, more likely you add about 5 years to that. So let's call it 2035 for Georgina. So they can't basically make anything more until we have those capacities. Any township builder zoning or planning will tell you roughly when secondary plans will happen.
So it's a good ballpark, but we're not going to count it to the date, even if it is in
No,
the secondary plan, because of all those other things that go into it.
absolutely, yeah. And planning and zoning acts, the contacts at the town, they will give you a ballpark of roughly when that'll be happening. Great question, and I appreciate that.
I love that. Anyone have any other questions about the presentation today, about general questions about land use, things like that? Raise your hands. I do have a comment in the chat here from Andrea asking if you're open to speaking about a current listing that she hasn't been able to find a buyer for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I
Totally.
would say, Andrea, is I'll throw in the group as well. If you want to reach out to Mike at jj.team, that's his direct email there, and then you guys can connect offline if that works out. I've just thrown it in the group.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be more than happy to look. And keep in mind, we sometimes we do a listing audit inside the Jackson's Point office with some people, and we catch listings that they don't have nearly what you can do with the property on it, and some of them are residential as well. So the agents are just not catching them. So we can stand above, we can look better than everyone else is by doing a little bit more homework.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate your time.
This was so great, Mike. Thank you so much. I feel like we've gone over this so many times, and every time you speak, I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. There's always so much to learn when it comes to this. And again, when you get your client that property, or 190,000 a year just in passive income, all of this, who are they going to refer to? Who are they going to come back to for all of their real estate needs? Like, this is a way of setting yourself up as different from everyone else and just crushing it. So thank you so much, Mike. This was wonderful.
Thank you guys. My pleasure.